One bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey, bucket listers, welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life podcast. So stoked that you've tuned in once again. We're on live on a bunch of different platforms. So if you're watching, please interact. We can put some of your comments up on the screen. What an episode, mate. I've been looking forward to this, having a chat with the great Andrew Griffiths. What do we call it? The Entrepreneurial Futurist? Futurist.
Yeah. Well, you were at the conference when we kind of came up with that term collectively. Wait around in Melbourne a few years ago. You know, when you don't know how to describe yourself, you've got to come up with some way of figuring out how to tell people what the hell it is you do. I'm not sure if that tells anyone.
I got the bucket list guy, but I think the Entrepreneurial Futurist is just like, it's just a whole rung above. So, mate, and it couldn't be more fitting because your latest book, as I was just saying off air, your latest book, which we'll get into in a lot of detail, which couldn't have come at a better time for me. And I'm just so stoked that you got this out of your head and onto paper for us to read. And there it is. Someone has to be the most expensive. Why not make it you? Andrew's latest book. We'll get into the detail of that. But first, mate, we go back a long, long way. You've always been one of these guys that I've looked up to, and I want to be like that guy when I'm a professional speaker, when I'm an author, which I am now. But you've been a rock star in my world for a lot of years, mate, and I'm so stoked to be able to say that I've shared the stage with you. And but I guess you've been at this for a long, long time, right? So I always ask this question. When we used to fly, we're doing this right in the middle of COVID-19. Remember this time when we used to fly? We used to and go international. We used to go and see other countries back in the day. We used to fill out this incoming passenger card. And we used to put in our occupation. Now, of the many countries that you've flown into, including Australia, coming back home, what have you put as your occupation, sort of up until lately, and what would you put it on as in the future?
I always used to. I've been writing books for 25 odd years now, and I used to put author on my card. And when I would come into back into Australia or wherever I'm going, the problem though, it created a problem because I would be going through customs, and the customs dude would be looking and go, "Oh, you're an author." So number one, they would ask me, "You write all those kids' books, right?" I get that. So if I didn't get that, I've got to explain, no, I'm not, and I've got a funny story about that. But anyway, what they would do is they'd want to have this big, long conversation about me as an author and what is it like. Now, that's all well and true, but there's 25,000 people behind me who really don't care, and they're not enjoying this conversation, and I can feel the hatred being piled on me from behind. So after that, I stopped writing author, and I put something like plumber, like bricklayer, something chef, something like that, simply because it happened every single time. And I went, I can't do it. I can't answer this interrogation. I'm nervous enough going through customs, let alone having a cold sweat in the line, looking around nervously.
And it's not something you joke about either. It's like, we've all had the joke, adult film star or whatever, and that only lasts for about one interrogation.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's my experience now. I'm a plumber.
Yeah. Oh, you're a plumber. All right. Well, I've got some taps that. So, mate, whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I live in Melbourne. I'm in Melbourne now. I lived in Cairns for 30 odd years, right up on the Great Barrier Reef. in another life. That's what I ended up moving up there. I was a commercial diver back then, so ended up now down in Melbourne for the last 2 years, and spent one of those years in my apartment, basically, going for holidays in between the living room and the bedroom and the kitchen. So love it.
And how do you progress from scuba diver to how many books have you done now? How many books have you authored?
14 that I admit to.
So how do you go from that to that? I know that your first business was in the scuba industry. How do you transition?
Yeah, it through fate and fortune, I guess, is probably the best thing. So I was a commercial diver putting in pontoons on the Great Barrier Reef, and I got decompression sickness. So basically nitrogen bubbles in the brain and spine, and I got a really, really bad dose of decompression sickness. So I had to be recompressed and emergency evacuation and all that kind of stuff. And that meant that I couldn't dive anymore. And at the time I was working for a big Japanese company called NYK. And they said, well, it took us 6 months rehabilitation after the accident. And then they said, well, you've got a big mouth. We'll put you into sales and marketing. And I resisted it. I played victim for a while. It was everyone else's fault. I mean, I got bent, that happens. It's one of those things. But of course, I had to go through a bit of the poor, pitiful me. And then I ended up in some amazing situations. This is one of the biggest shipping companies in the world who said, we will retrain you and help you find a new career. And the reality of it was that when I finally stopped being a baby and I realized the enormity of the opportunity, I grabbed it with both hands. And next thing I'm traveling around the world as their international sales manager for one of their subsidiary companies. And I spent 5 years, 9 months on the road, traveling everywhere. I spent every second month in the States for years. And I learned about sales and marketing. And I generally had my own small business most of my life. But then I kind of thought, well, okay, I'm going to start my own little marketing company. Yep. So I started a little marketing company. My clients were all small businesses. I love small business. And, I relate to small business owners really well. And I realized I was starting to see the same problems all the time, Trav, the same issues, the same challenge. I was answering the same questions all day long. So really, I needed a time management tool. The other thing was I was having all these people wanting advice. And then at the end of the sentence, they'd go, plus I haven't got any money to pay you. So I needed a time management tool, and I was running a not-for-profit. And I go, well, and we can all relate to that, right? And so I ended up kind of putting these ideas together, these fact sheets about how to market your business. Really simple, how to make a brochure, how to do a sales call, how to turn your invoice into a sales tool, stuff like that. And I had 50 of them on the wall one day, and then I thought, maybe if I wrote another 50, put them all together, there's 101 things. I could write a book called 101 Ways to Market Your Business. And anyway, so I've reached out to a few of my marketing friends, I said, what do you reckon? I'm thinking about doing this. They all said, Andrew, you're a nice bloke, but who are you to write a book? So, and that was really nice, because that made me want to do it even more.
Yeah, true.
I found a publisher. Like a few lucky opportunities. J.K. Rowling played a role in that. There's this weird set of circumstances. And I literally got a phone call from a publisher saying, we love it. My receptionist at the time took this phone call, and I said, no, it's too quick. It's just a local radio station. Living in a small town, everyone knows everyone. So it's just my mate at the radio station. They're playing a joke, it's Andrew Griffiths. We've got to publish a book. And anyway, I said, just hang up on him. And this lady kept ringing back, and my receptionist kept hanging up, and we finally got a fax from big publisher Alan Elman saying, it really is us. We really do want to publish your book. Can you please take our phone call? And then luckily they published the book, and right time, right place, Trav. There weren't a lot of Australians writing business books at the time. There's a lot of American and English, and that's all wonderful books, don't get me wrong. But Australians, like everyone, we're a bit parochial, and we want to hear messages from our own folks. And so it was a really, really simple marketing book, and it took off, became the number one marketing book in Australia. It's a small business, and it started to get picked up. in America and India, and Chinese government used it in Russia and all around the world. And of course, you have a successful book and you're with a publisher, they go, do you want to write another one? You go, sure. You just, all of a sudden you've written 14 books. So that's a short version, Trav.
Back the truck up. The Chinese government, hang on, they've got two queries out of it. I was actively listening then. So Chinese government picked it up, marketing / propaganda they've created. We won't go there, but that's interesting. And J.K. Rowling, how's that link?
The Chinese government one, they published 3 of my books at the time of the Beijing Olympics. And they printed thousands of my books to give them to small business owners, Chinese small business owners, to show how Westerners think about doing business. Amazing. And there's one line that was changed in the book, and which shows the detail. In the book, I've written something along the lines of just ignore whatever the government says and do it. And is my advice. And in the Chinese version, that's you must work with the government. They are there to help you. And it was like the only line that was changed that a friend of mine, Chinese friend of mine, told me about.
Did you attack them in the courts for copyright or or changing your? I'm tipping no.
No, not at all. And the J.K. Rowling thing was kind of funny because I didn't know Harry Potter. I didn't know any of that stuff, and it was just kind of happening when I was starting. Yeah. And the publishers, Allen & Unwin, they got the contract to distribute the J.K. Rowling books, Harry Potter series in Australia. And they're a really good publishing company and an old publishing company. And they always had the philosophy that when they're in good times, they've got to be investing in new authors because we're looking for people, they need to have new authors coming through the ranks. And so they were going to make millions out of distributing Harry Potter books. So they decided to invest in 2 new kids authors, business authors, history authors, like 10 new authors. Yeah. And my book, my manuscript just happened to appear at the right time in the right place. And so, without a doubt, J.K. Rowling played a role in me becoming an author. Weird, right?
Awesome claim to fame. And look, I thought in a previous life, because I went back and before bringing you on today, the Entrepreneurial Futurist. Was it the Small Business Whisperer before that? Because that was
that's what everyone calls me. All this stuff, I get called the Godfather of small business. Now that which basically just means I'm an old fart, right? That's all of these lines.
You're connected. You're connected. If something goes wrong in your business, you call the Godfather and he sorts it out.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all different kind of genres that people seem to allocate to me, I guess. I've been doing my thing for such a long time now. Small business is my bag.
Yeah, and what is it about small business that floats your boat? Like you could talk multinational, you could talk a lot of, but you've really been in that space. And I think that really is hand in glove into what you've done with this book, with this latest book, is you've really stayed in that lane, which I really love. When you've got no shiny object like the rest of us, being an entrepreneur, but you've really honed in on small business. Why is that?
It's interesting. I mean, I bought my first business when I was 17, going on 18, and I had no entrepreneurial role models or no. I came from one of those bizarre kind of childhoods. There was no history of business in the family or any of that stuff. It's just I kind of, like most entrepreneurs, I fell into it, I think, but I kind of took to it.
What was your first business? Was that the scuba business?
That I'll admit to on air, yes. I did all kinds of other things when I was a naughty teenager. But the first official business was a scuba diving shop.
One you paid tax on. Yeah, right.
Well, I'm pretty sure I didn't pay any tax on that one either. That was in the good old days, right? But for me, the thing that I personally love about small business is that is the unexpected. And that's that any day I can get an email or back then a phone call or a letter that completely changes your life or the way your business operates, or there's a high level of uncertainty. And I love that. For me, the uncertainty, every day I'm excited to open my email because I never quite know what it's going to be. Now, of course, not every day has that, but it's but it is that uncertainty that I find exciting around that. And I have so much admiration for anyone who runs their own business, because I know how hard it is. I know the sacrifice. I know that I don't really know terribly many people in business who do it for the money. Like this whole thing that, that perception that people are in business is all about, a bit about making money. Most of the people that I know, they do it because they're either unemployable, realistically, often by choice, but it's because they love what they do. They like the freedom of being their own boss. All of those things, enough to compensate for the struggle that often accompanies being in business.
What are the failure rates in business, and whether overseas failure rates and versus Australian, and why do a lot of people fail at in the early days of business?
I think the numbers are really different. I mean, mate, you've come across it. The old, 4 out of 5 businesses fail in the first 5 years. It's not really like that anymore. I think that those kind of, whenever I hear that stuff quoted, it's just a bit of BS as far as I'm concerned. It's a different kind of world now. People don't tend to go broke and lose the house. Like, when I started my business, like I bought my, it's bricks and mortar. It's you've got a big amount of money, that's got to be invested or borrowed. People now starting businesses on a credit card, so they go broke and they got a credit card debt a lot of the time. Now, I'm generalizing, of course. You own a restaurant, you got a lot of, you go broke, you lose stuff. But so it's different kinds of businesses. I look now a younger kind of audience coming through, starting businesses. To be honest, I think they lack a bit of tenacity. When you're going to lose everything, you have an extraordinarily high level of motivation to make it work. If your mum and dad have given you 50 grand to go out and start your tie-dye kind of company and it doesn't work, it's, well, sorry, mum and dad, it didn't work. And again, forgive me for everyone who's going, that's a horrible thing to say, and I am generalizing. But we're getting people who are also leaving corporate jobs and going, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to become a consultant or whatever it is. And then they find they can't do it because they used to they had a PA, they had a marketing department, they had a team of people. Yeah. Now you're all of them. And as you know, we're in my business, I'm the marketing guy, I'm the bottle washer, I'm the whole thing. So there's lots and lots of different reasons that I believe that businesses fail. And you could say it's complicated. I used to think business was complicated 30 years ago. Now I realize how simple it was compared to now. It's complicated, but you got to have the passion. And I know that can sound like a Hallmark card. You got to be passionate about your business. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I know you do too. If you're not going to be fired up about what it is you're doing, it's hard. Passion creates profit is my view. If you're not going to get excited about your business, you can't expect anyone else to get excited about it.
100%. Do you think that's been lost to a certain extent, the tenacity, the determination to get punched 5 times and get up on the 6th and keep going?
Yeah. I do, Trav. Sorry, mate, to interrupt.
How do you? And there's only one way to really, get taught that, right?
You got to get kicked in the nuts a few times, and the thing is that. We live in a world where there's a lot of big offers and there's a lot of, build a funnel, make $1 billion. And you kind of go, really? Like how many people do you know out there? The only people that actually make money doing that are the people that are selling you the training programs that are going to tell you how to make $1 million.
The funnel creators.
And it is the backseat Uber experts, like we live in a world where everyone wants success, but, the amount of work you got to do to get it hasn't changed, but the rhetoric has changed.
Sorry, mate, you keep going.
No, I was just going to say, like being an author, you know what it's like to be successful as an author is really, really freaking hard. Like to write the book is the easiest part. That's the easy part of the process, and that's bloody hard. So to be successful as an author, to be successful as a speaker. I remember going to see Washington Speaking Bureau, looking at signing up with them in the States, and said, we've got 26,000 speakers on our books at the moment. Yeah, we'll put you on now. We've got 26,001. And I remember the guy I'm talking to, I said, yeah, but I've got like 10 books. And he said, oh, let me just do it. He says, yes, we've only got 1,400 people that have got 50 books on the or more on the list. 26,000.
One of the biggest speaker, for those that are watching, this is one of the biggest speaker bureaus, like a speaker agent over in the USA. And that's the thing. I mean, the daunting part, part of entrepreneurship right now, small business ownership, it is so noisy. And in the last 12 months, mate, I mean, every business is an online business now. It's a bonus if you've got some bricks and mortar offline component. True, like it's noisy. So how do you survive above the noise? How do you get attention above the noise? And this is leading obviously to why your book is so good. But how do you rise above that noise? For people that are watching this right now or listening to this right now, who are maybe just starting, who maybe haven't been punched just yet. You've got 4 more to go. But how would you start if you were to start again? I mean, you must get this question all the time. But if you were to start again, like right now, what would you do?
The thing, the game changer for me in the world we're in now is your community, and so much of that comes back now to ties into your brand. And we hear the word branding a lot, but of course we've moved from business branding to personal branding, and it has become so important that you build an incredible, strong personal brand, which is, and that is such a big topic, as you and I know, and I'm sure many of you people, people listening, and it comes back to this transparency, this integrity, this doing good, this, like finding that, that your point of difference, that's, loving your community and treating your community with respect. I see way too much just try and make money out of people, put them in the funnel, automate it all, doesn't really matter. Just basically treat them like cows and milk them.
You're right.
My community for me personally, I have nothing but admiration and respect for, because that's where 90% of my business comes from. And I respect everyone in it. I know everyone in my community, it's like, and people get all caught up in this big numbers. You've got to have 1 million followers. You've got to do this. I don't buy into any of that. I believe, just as we used to back in the old days, when I was a boy, you had to really look after your customers, and you've got to, these days our customers have different expectations. Whatever you're selling, they will stay with you if you do a few basic things. But if you rest on your laurels, if you don't stop coming up with new stuff, if you lack integrity, if you don't share bigger and better stories, if you don't have that unique point of difference, if you are just using your community, there's plenty of other people selling what we're all selling who they can find. And because your community are your police, they're your controllers for when you do the wrong thing. And I'm talking to you about this, Trav. You know this better than me. They're your research and development team. I never, ever launch a product without my community giving me 2 thumbs up. The first thing I do is I reach out to my community and go, hey, I'm thinking about doing a program about this. What do you think? And unless I get 50 people going, yep, great idea, I don't spend another minute on it. I don't go off and develop it and spend years and 50 grand and do all that. I ask my community if you want it. And there's a great book out there called Content Inc. If you haven't read it, it's by the guy who runs a content academy in New York, and I can never remember his name, which is embarrassing. And his whole thing is build a community first, ask them what they want, and then build a business to give them what they want. Whereas most of us are, here's my product, now I'm going to find someone to sell it to. I don't think that model works anymore. It works for Facebook. It works for those organizations who we're spending $1 billion a week on with advertising. But because of the noise that you're talking about there, Trav, all of that stuff gets hard. If you've got an amazing community, You don't need a big community. You need an amazingly engaged community. They will recommend, support, buy. They will give you everything you need, but you've got to treat them with absolute integrity and realize that it's an honor to have a community following you and doing that stuff, not to put on your louder house and become a milkmaid. You know, they're not cows.
I love the fact that with that, like keeping a community or tribe really, you know, nice and close to you, engaged. It's you know, people want to be, but they want to feel a part of something, don't they?
They do.
They want to keep close to brands these days and personalities to a certain extent. How do you measure engagement of that community? You know, what would you recommend for people?
Yeah, for me, the engagement comes in a few different areas. Like I don't share a huge amount of personal stuff in my social space, but I share in the social media, but I share enough. You know, like holidays, just been to Tasmania and chased wombats and did all that stuff. You know, I'll do a bit of that stuff, but I'm really looking for the engagement that I get from people on the day-to-day side of things with my social media, with my EDMs, when I'm emailing stuff, when I create a lot of product and content specifically for my community that it's free. I don't charge anyone. It's a part of what it is.
You do give a lot away, mate. You do give a lot away.
And gladly, because it's a return on investment for me as well. And so my community is very vocal, and I think if you ask your what we tend to do a little bit too much these days is we bombard people with one directional content, right? You don't engage with that one directional kind of stuff. So for me, a lot of my content is two directional. I'm asking for their opinion. I'm asking for their views. I'm asking, what are you struggling with? How does that work? Not to then go and send them an email to flog them something, but to find out what's going on. People in my community reach out to me all the time and ask me questions, ask me stuff. They're not paying for it. They're doing it, and I'm responding. And I've done it all my kind of life in this particular world, and because I realize how important it is. So the nurturing element of building that community, if you build that wonderful tribe and you look after them and you lead them, and you know, my number one asset is my personal brand. You will never ever see me doing anything inappropriate outside, on the street, on social media, because I've spent 55 years building my personal brand, and I tell you, I'm not going to bugger it by doing something stupid, because I trust I respect my community too much. They respect me for me to bugger that. So that's how seriously I treat this trip.
I love that, and that gives you a guide on what to say yes to, what to say no to, and you said you know, I'm not sharing much of my personal brand. You're white. Talk about not sharing any personal. Your white fluffy dog, I think, has got more Instagram followers than you these days, mates. And that's, you know, just there's Andrew Griffiths, and there's what's your dog's name again?
Leo. Yeah. He's developed attitude as a result of that now. He demands extra food.
So much of a prima donna. I mean, it's just next level. What do you do? You'll be working in one day. No,
I'll be on his payroll.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. When was the aha moment to write this book? And this is the new book, guys. So someone has to be the most expensive. Why not make it you? I mean, this just completely jumped out at me, and not many books do. I've got to be honest, not many books do. And you know, when you've got limited time and you want to invest that time wisely, and you want to get a return on that time, for me, that's why these sort of books, you know, this really caught my attention. But what was the impetus? What was the aha moment that you went, you know what? And this, you launched this and you referenced COVID-19 in this thing, dude. And you're talking about being most expensive and people on JobKeeper.
I know, but it's the best time to do it. This is the nice thing.
Through that.
So I had this idea because I realized, because I've experienced this myself. When I had my first business, I had full-blown poverty mentality. You know, I'd grown up in that kind of environment where not a lot of self-worth, you know, poor, ugly situations. So, your self-esteem and your value for money is not there anyway. And and so I bought a dive shop, and I ran it the way that the guy who owned it ran it, which is cheap. Everything had to be cheap because that's what everyone bought. He said, a Canadian guy I bought it from, and he said, you can't mark it up, you can't mark up your gear, your courses, because no one will pay for it. And so my poverty mentality plus his poverty mentality just created a poverty apocalypse. And so I believed it, and I went about sending myself broke. Because no matter how much gear I sold, I was never making any money. No matter how many people I taught how to dive, I was never making any money. And then I realized that, and through, again, a bit of a long-winded story, I won't go into it, but through a strange set of circumstances, that my philosophy was challenged by people, by a couple of people, by a coach, by an equipment salesman guy saying, look, someone's got to be the most expensive, why not make it you? But if you're going to be the most expensive, you've got to be the best. And we completely transformed this dive shop overnight. I was seriously buggered financially. And because just kept losing money, and trying to sell more gear that I was losing money on, And so anyway, transformed this dive shop, completely changed it. The story's in there, and everything changed. And I kind of went, wow, and I started to, that was obviously a long time ago. And about 10, 15 years ago, when I started speaking more, talking about this story, this message kept coming back to me. I had a consulting business where I did the same thing. That first business, when I was doing consulting and I wrote my marketing book, I realized I had the wrong customers. I wasn't charging enough. So I moved out, tripled my rates, moved into a brand new office, and rebranded and repositioned, and became the most expensive in town. From that day on, my business moved.
It's 10 years ago, like easily 10 years ago. Yeah.
But interestingly, since then, and I've done, projects for everyone from the European Union through to, in Japan, China, different small business organizations around the traps. And one of the increasing things that I'm seeing is that there are so many businesses out there, they're not making any money. They're never going to make any money. Even if they were fully booked, they wouldn't be making a profit. But the other point is that you rightly brought up before is the noise. There is so much noise now, and now more than ever, it is so easy to get lost in the noise. It's so easy to kind of be, just in the background, because everyone is saying the same thing. And that's why for me, then you turn around and you roll in COVID, and COVID quickly showed a major weakness in the financial strength and resilience of business in Australia, around the world, actually. So many businesses that went bust so quickly, and you go, we've got a problem here. It's like people living pay packet to pay packet. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling and living week to week. I know, I've been there. I get it, completely understand it. My thing is, there's a better way. If you're in that space, the problem on top of that becomes we get comfortable with that. The small business owners struggle. We want to wear our medal of honor going, oh, it's small business, it's got to be tough. No, that's bullshit. It doesn't need to be tough, right? But we get, learned helplessness. It's, because, and I hear all these fallacies. Oh, my customers will never pay any more. It's because you got the wrong customers. The market's down. And you go, there's always people buying. Doesn't matter how. I make more money. The tougher the times, the better my business is. And the GFC was the best 2 or 3 years for my business. I sold more books, did more, and no one was paying for speakers then. So all of my other work was all happening through then. So tough times, I get it. There's a lot of businesses that have struggled during COVID, continue to struggle because they're reliant on that model. And my big question here is, what has COVID really done? In my view, all it's done is sped up time. The business models that have failed because the world condensed 10 years ahead. All the stuff that was impossible to do. I'm a vet. You got to come and see me because, that's the way I operate. Now all of a sudden I'm doing Zoom calls with my vet, with my doctor, with my lawyer, with my accountant, with my financial planner, with my whoever. And you go, well, why the hell weren't we doing that before COVID? Like, why have I got to drive an hour to go and see you sitting and you're waiting for it I've got to lose half a day to go and see a vet for you to say, yep, he's fine. So you know, we're seeing restaurants that have got to diversify because there's too many freaking restaurants. You know, like so COVID came sped up, but what it highlighted were those businesses that got a poor financial model, not making any money. Those businesses have got a broken business model that no longer works in this world. Quickly highlighted, and we saw big companies where that didn't work, let alone little companies. But this happens every time there's a major economic downturn, whether it's GFC, Y2K, Iraqi war, whatever it is. It's just this is a bigger one than we've experienced. And so for me, Trav, sorry, this is a long-winded answer again, but you know I can talk under wet, 40 feet deep. All I'm trying to do is say this is a better alternative, is to at least charge what you're worth. Ideally, be the most expensive, because that's the ultimate way to future-proof yourself, because there's never been a better time. It differentiates you. People will find you. If you're the best at what you do, right, people will find you because they can find you. I built a global business in Cairns. You know, that's a little two-bit town in the middle of nowhere, really, you know, like it's not two-bit town, but you know what I mean. It's a small little area. I run in Cairns. You know, once you leave Cairns, though, you're a traitor. You know, everyone in Cairns hates me because I've left. But you know, I built that business and really, you know, pre-internet as well, all that kind of stuff. And it goes to show that geography is irrelevant. And I mean, my client base, as I said before, is everyone from CBS out of America. People go, oh, yeah, but you've written books. Yes, but I wrote you know, I ran a little marketing company in Cairns, and I wrote a book, and I've wrote other books. You know, don't let your geography limit you. You know, when it comes to being the best, people don't care where you are; they'll find you. You know, they'll find you.
That's so true. In the last, you know, 6 months to a year, everyone has failed forward faster. Everyone's been forced, gun to your head, adaptation. They've adapted to new technology. Everyone's okay with, you know, well, probably getting to the end of their tether now with the cat jumping up in the middle of a Zoom call, facing the owner, and then we're all looking at, I don't know how many cat's bums you've seen, mate, but I've seen a lot over the last 12 months on group Zoom calls. And but we've all innovated. We've innovated like never before. And I've found myself saying this recently. If you're in business and you're actually still complaining about COVID, like, get out of business, right? You should have adapted by now. You should have innovated by now. You should have added that extra string to your bow in terms of your services.
But you know what people want, Trav? People all want. But human nature, we all want it to go back to the way that it was.
Yeah. There's no old normal, is there?
It doesn't work that way. Look, I look at it and look at crayfish. Let's look at crayfish. You know, crayfish have been a tough way to make a living. You know, I haven't bought a crayfish for the last 10 years in Australia because it's $150 a kilo. It's like you're paying a ridiculous amount for a crayfish. And that's because they're all going to the export market. Now, all of a sudden, the Chinese market said, we're not going to buy any crayfish. I can buy crayfish for $25 at Woolies, and Woolworths can't keep up with the supply of crayfish. The lady, I interviewed the lady at Woolies, in my local Woolies the other day, and she said, I fill up the tray, it's gone. So really, the bottom line is, if the crayfishermen utilize this as an opportunity, they build a market up for crayfish in Australia that is always going to be here. It's not going to be affected by changes in currency. It's not going to be affected by China having a dummy spit or any other country. So now you can do crayfish to your door. These innovative people are saying you can get a crate, $49 crayfish delivered to your door. And I look at that and saying that's about creating a better model, because apart from business changing at a rate that's never changed at before, business models are changing at a rate that they've never changed before. And we're quickly learning that the most important skill that we need to have as a business owner is this ability to evolve and come up with new on a regular basis, new ideas, new products, new payment methods, new communication tools, new. And, you know, Alvin Toffler, you know, the Future Shock guy, author, always said the illiterate of the 21st century aren't those who can't read or write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And we're right in that now. So a lot of businesses have failed because they just haven't adapted. You know, I did this tour of England, not last year, the year before, and it was paid for by the European Union. And the idea of it was for me to see a couple of thousand British small businesses and to try and help them to start getting ready for life after Brexit, part of the agreement type thing. And so I was doing these workshops all around England, and I would say to them, so, okay, tell me, why should anyone buy your products?
Yeah.
And most people, so someone, a brave person, one person, because they're British, they're very subdued. One person would go, oh, because our products are British. And go, right, okay. And who do you want to sell it to? And we, the close countries like Germany and France and all that stuff. and I would listen. And so you want to tell the people that you want to sell your products to the people that you've just told to bugger off, and your only competitive advantage is the fact that it's British.
Yeah, dear.
Have you got a plan B? And honestly, they didn't see what the issue was. And I kind of went, wow, your model's broken. I mean, you make great stuff in Britain. I get that. But your neighbours, you've hit one too many cricket balls over the fence. There's a bit of tension happening now with the neighbours, and they're going to now, just as much as you're not there, they are now free to go elsewhere and buy other stuff. So, for me, I'm constantly saying to people, everything we do in business has to constantly be evolving and rapidly. And I look at that and go, I'm 55, been in business for many years. It gets harder when you get older to be constantly changing and adapting, but there is no option. There is no choice. That's how we do business now. And I see that in everything. I mean, how I write a book, how we present, how we coach, how we do whatever we do, and you can either get freaked out by that, or you can choose to get excited about that. And for me, that's the key here. And if you've got a great community, they will help you. They will evolve. And if you're the most expensive, insert shameless promotion, what?
Shameless about that.
People will find you. And I use lots of examples in this book about businesses that are robust, that are strong, that are going to be around for a long time. They charge nosebleed prices, but they do this thing. They're the best. They get it. I got a friend of mine who makes walking sticks. Okay, for $85,000 a walking stick. Okay, I can go up the road. I can go to Target or one of those places and buy a walking stick for $9.95. Right? He sells them for $85,000. A friend of mine, Peter Lick, a photographer in America, he sold 3 prints, $10.1 million US. He's got a Guinness World Record for not that matters so much, but the highest price ever paid for one image. And this is a time when everyone is saying, oh, but everyone's got a camera, we've all got a phone there. Like, the value of photography has gone down.
Yeah.
Say that to Peter Lick. Now, easy to say, but that's an anomaly, right? Why is Peter Lick successful? I've known him for 30 years. Yeah. He used to be my neighbor. The reason Peter Lick is so successful, is he the world's best photographer? No. He is the world's hardest working man. I've never, ever, ever in my life met anyone that works as hard as him. He is extraordinary. Why is he successful? Because of that. And more than anything else, that's the reason,
Interesting, mate. I just opened up I absolutely caned your book when I read it. Like, I read a book. I read a book. I read a book with a 4-color pen, and no word of a lie, it has been bashed. That's just, and I opened to some of my notes, just in coming into this, because we've got bucket list coach, right? And I wrote here, right here, boom. Cheap coaches will attract cheap clients.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Look, I've totally transformed. Thanks to this, it was right place, right time. And it's a long drawn out process, because, it's hard to change something like straight away. So we've got to reverse engineer, the whole concept, but we're in the throes of doing that. My team has been absolutely phenomenal in doing that. But that was that line in the sand, that the book helped me draw the line in the sand to go after fewer people, to bring fewer people into our community of more quality rather than just anyone. And I think that, the hardest thing about doing that and I dare say the hardest thing about doing, maybe going to the most expensive, why not make it you, is our psychology around it.
Totally.
My self-worth gets challenged in that process. Who am I to be the most expensive? And I know that in this book you really go into it about the psychology component. Just to go into that in a little bit more detail about if we decide, in our business, in a personal brand, business brand, how, it's all well and good going out there and charging double what you've been charging, up until now. But then our psychology is going to kind of catch up, right? What are the hacks around that?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because there's a few elements. And so what I talk about in the book is the process for how we do this. And you're right. Like how do we go to charging more or being the most expensive? Because you've got to have a process to follow. It's not just a cute idea. There's a depth behind it. But you're right, mate. And I love seeing a book that's covered in notes. That's an author's happy place is to see that. The biggest thing we got to overcome is that because we get comfortable, right? We all, you've probably read T. Harv Eker's. I remember meeting T. Harv in the States a few times and chatting to him about poverty mindset and stuff like that. And you look at it and kind of go, we get used to it and we believe the rhetoric of what's going on around us. The bottom line is, how many people start to discount before you even have how much is that? Oh, it's $2,000. And I go, well, I didn't ask for a discount. The thing is that our self-worth is very much tied into what we're prepared to charge. And so we've really got to be addressing that. For me, what's been really helpful has been that obviously over the years, I've got enough evidence to say that I'm good at what I do, and I'm proud to say that. I don't mean it egotistically. I've got a big enough client list. I've written enough books, sold enough books. I've had enough feedback from people to say I'm good at what I do. But I do aspire to be the best, whatever that means for me, whatever that means for me, because you can't be the most expensive and be the worst, like that if you can't deliver, then it's like a restaurant that is good one day, the food's amazing one day and crap the next. You are better off being crap all the time than customers can't deal with inconsistency. So we've got to change our cycle, or ideally be great all the time and charge what you're worth. But ideally, we've got to address it ourselves. And that's why the process is actually a scary one. And I talk about this in the book. And, it's interesting from a writing point of view, Trav. When I first wrote it, I kind of did all this stuff. And then I went away for a few weeks to fine tune. I went, you know what? I haven't done enough I need to really position this because this is not for the faint of heart. Because what's going to happen? It's very scary. It's very challenging. And that's what makes it even better because few people will do it. So I talk a lot about you can't just put lipstick on a wombat. You can't just triple your prices tomorrow and offer the same thing and do the same thing and unless you're really good at what you're doing. Now I meet two kinds of businesses. Those that are really good at what they do, they just undercharge because they don't have the self-worth and they're telling themselves all these kind of bullshit stories. This is the big one. My customers can't afford anymore. The market's tight. This is what the going rate is. All of that stuff. And I go, is that true? Is that really, really true? Or is that what you're telling yourself? The other thing is, once you change and you make this change and you're not going to put lipstick on the wombat, but you're going to do a whole kind of transformation, you're going to lose customers. And I say to people, you need to lose customers, and the ones you're going to lose are the ones you want to lose. You're going to lose staff because not everyone can deal with this new position, this new, aspiration to be the best and to charge what you're worth. You're going to lose that. You're going to have other people who are going to kind of doubt you along the way, and it's so easy to slide back into we get our business on price. I have these people that say to me all the time, Trav, I get every single contract that I tender for. And I go, oh, man, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's a shame. And I go, what are you talking about? We get every contract. That's awesome. We're amazing. No, you're just cheap. If I got every contract I went for, that tells me I'm too cheap. My target, 5 out of 10 quotes. If I get half the quotes I go for and I'm expensive, then that's there. You want people to say, that Trav Bell is bloody expensive, but he's the best. That's the line. That's the line that changes your life.
That is gold.
Everything.
And that's give us some examples. You know, I know what the next book's going to be. It's pretty prevalent about what you're going to be talking about in the next book. And these are, I love the Crumpet story. The Crumpet, you know, your expensive Crumpet. Tell us that story, but also like any other examples that you've got of where businesses are real unicorns, and they are the most expensive businesses in their space, and why, and how they tell the story and all that sort of thing. And I'll give you a perfect example. I've got on my bucket list to buy a Nick Forget hat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who's Nick Forget? Is this really cool dude that makes these hats over in LA, and his website is just one big story. Some celebs and all it, you know, have worn them, and I don't want them because of that. They're just really cool hats. Mm-hmm. I've got one occasion a year that I actually wear it at, but he's got this, and they're worth thousands and thousands. But he's got this little matchstick. It's literally a matchstick that sits in the hat. That's his signature piece. You know, if it hasn't got a matchstick, I don't want it. It's a freaking matchstick. You know, all the matchstick is interwoven throughout his whole story on his website. He's a bit of there's a lot of mystique about this guy, and he's
story, right?
Amazing story. And I've followed this guy for years, and I wrote in my notes in this is like, it's a Nick Forget. You know, that's what he's doing. That's what he's done. Everyone wants. There's a big waiting list of hats getting personally designed by him and all that. And it's like, dude is onto it. Give us some examples.
Well, a few. I mean, straight away. See, the thing is, like, you know, yes, it's about the product or the service, but being the best covers so much more. It's about the experience. It's about the commentary. It's about, you know, the culture within your organization. So I've seen this principle. The Crumpet story was one. The holy crumpets. You know, I heard about these crumpets, and people going, and in Melbourne, right, home of food. People, there's a croissant place here called Loon. I drove by it the other day, and there's like 50 people in a queue lining up to buy a freaking croissant, right? And the lady behind it used to design Formula One race cars or something ridiculous. You know, she makes croissants, the best croissants in Australia, if not the world, right? But anyway, I heard about these. I heard rumors about these crumpets, you know, in the ether. People going, oh my God, and I'm going, really? Anyway, I started to track down these holy crumpets. My partner's going, oh yeah, they're amazing. No one can really help me. They have kind of a shop in the city, but anyway, I've gone online and found this Instagram thing, and I've kind of somehow managed to order them for like a week in advance. And anyway, it's Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. It's pouring with rain, and I'm at an address which my phone says this is where I've got to go. And there's no signage, no nothing. I'm literally knocking on this kind of weird door. It's like I'm trying to score drugs. And the hipster opens the door and says, yeah, this really kind of gruff guy. And I kind of hold up my little phone, and he says, and he shuts it. He says, wait there. And he comes back in a few minutes with this package and gives it to me. And it's like, right, he just slams the door. And I kind of scurry to the car and I open it up, and I've got this 6 crumpets, you know, which you look at it and go, oh my God. And of course, they're like nosebleed prices. I can buy 6 crumpets from Woolies for $3, $2. These were like $14 or $15. Absolutely amazing. But incredible. Sold out. You can only pre-order. Like, to get them is nearly impossible. It's like it's easier to win the lotto than to get these crumpets, right? It's like the whole thing is just kind of cool. The experience, the whole thing, and that I had that experience just after I'd finished writing this, and I wrote about that experience in more detail to put it in at the intro to say this is what it's about. Yeah. So it's the whole package, right? It's not just you sell the best crumpets, but everything else about your business is crap. You know, you've got to do the whole thing. You talk about the hat. These glasses of mine, they're from a company called Chrome Hearts. Now, anyone who knows glasses, I have people come up to me at an airport say, mate, your Chrome Hearts are amazing. Probably $4,000 for a pair of glasses. Ridiculous.
I Googled it straight after I read the book.
Chrome Hearts,
It could be chats. We could be in chats.
And hard to get. You go to their website, you can't figure out their website's a nightmare.
I couldn't work it out. I could not work out their website. I'm like, what are they selling me here?
I've got another pair.
You want it more.
That's the point of people. I bought my first pair in San Francisco. I was in a little kind of optometrist shop, found these glasses, and they fit me amazing. They were and really a good brand statement that I wanted because I've worn glasses all my life. And bought it amazing, and then just started to notice. I was wandering around. People would walk up to me, and then I go, "Man, your chrome hearts are amazing." I got 2 pairs, and there's this unofficial little chrome heart thing. So yes, they're good glasses, but I'm really honest. There's a big ego part of it as well. Most people would have no idea you're wearing chrome hearts. That's fine, but it's extraordinary the people that do. I had a pilot come up to me when I was getting off a plane back when we could fly. Literally getting off the plane, said, "Love the chrome hearts." Standing by the door, and I went, "Oh my God, they are very, very cool glasses, and they're amazing." But they're expensive. But I've got friends of mine who are dairy farmers who make organic yogurts who fit into this category. I've got consultant friends. I've got people that run accommodation. I've got this model works for any kind of business in any kind of industry, in any kind of town, in any kind of economic time. And that's a big statement, right? But the problem is now times are tough. What tends to happen is prices now, we kind of start eating ourselves. If you are the most expensive, or at least charging what you're really worth, I guarantee that once you get through the challenge of getting to that place, your business will be far more secure. Your quality of your customers is better. Your business has fat in it, which means you get through tough times. Not like you go, "Well, I'm living week to week in my business." That is not a good way to run a business. Yet I would hazard a guess. My humble opinion on that would be 70% of businesses in Australia run week to week. And maybe I'm off. I reckon it could even be higher than that, and that's because everyone's playing in the same petri dish. You want to really differentiate yourself. Pricing works, but you can't have price without delivery of quality and everything you do. So we need to be having more discussions about how do we be extraordinary. Not just in the product, sure, that's got to be extraordinary, but with our communication, with our marketing, with our value adds, with our unexpected, with our surprise and delight, with our all of that kind of stuff. They're the conversations we need to have. We spend too much time poring over Excel spreadsheets, not enough time talking about how do we make a kick-ass experience for our customers and move from transactions to experiences.
And you're right. Perfect. It's a transaction. From transaction to experience is what it's all about. And, after reading the book, many aha moments, mate, and just going back to the drawing board and reverse engineering absolutely everything, our training materials, the quality of those training materials. Like I could go on and on. I probably will in a testimonial very soon for the book, mate. But I honestly, hand on heart, it was the perfect time for me to read that. So that's why I'm so stoked to have you on today, mate. And in summary, I can't recommend this highly enough, guys. And this is, I'm not one that likes to just waste time. You probably know this already. And I'm if you don't know already, one of the things on my bucket list is to read 52 books in a year. That's one of my ultimate challenges. So this book I read in between Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and then I read that, and then I read your book, mate, and then it was Where's My Cash Gone by my mate Bruce Campbell. And so there's a few signs there. And this took me more than a week because I wanted to just drill into every piece that came out. And I tell you what, it's been awesome, really awesome, mate. So if we had more time, I could tell you how awesome it is even more. But
thank you.
I recommend it to anyone. I recommend this to all of our coaches that might be watching. Anyone in business where you've maybe you've maybe got to reverse engineer yourself. There's some frustration that has crept in. You found yourself without that working capital, that working cash flow to get you through COVID times. We haven't, I think if you're right in the middle of innovation, adaptation, not just surviving but wanting to thrive, I think now is the perfect time to read this book. All right, so straight up, great recommendation, mate. I ask this question of every single guest who jumps on the Bucket List Live podcast, and that is, and you've already done this, so this is a big bucket list item for a lot of people. Just imagine a big stadium full of people, raised stage at the front, big booming microphone. I know you've been in this situation many, many times. What would you like to say in this current time? What would you like to say through the speakers, and who would you choose to be in the audience?
The thing I'd probably like to say the most is don't let a good crisis go to waste. We don't grow in this nice, even little kind of, it doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. We grow in short like that, and we just happen to be in a very big one of those right at the moment. And for me, my audience is a room full of motivated, intelligent, hard-working business owners that want to build a business of substance. That's the people for me. I don't want to. I don't want to deal with the backseat Uber guys, the funnel builders all going to be. I want people that want to build something of substance that they are ridiculously proud of. That their business is, it's that they look at their products or whatever it is, and they've got that glint in their eye where they're proud, and where their customers love them, adore them, and rave about them, and they already get it. That's the irony of it, because I want to be around them more than I want to be around a room full of people I've got to convince that this is a good idea. I'm too old and grumpy now for that. If you're not on board, that's okay. I don't mind. I want people that say, yeah, show me how to do that, and I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, mate. Thanks so much for being on the show, buddy. I'll tell you what, you should have got my ear a hell of a lot earlier about writing. How relieving it is to actually be a published author after like 10 years of being the bucket list guy. I tell you what, your guidance, your mentorship, your support around that has been absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait for the next book. I can't recommend this book highly enough.
So, well, and the same for you, mate. I'm not sure how much I've done to help you with this, mate, but I love the fact that you've written a book. And I always say writing a book is the best personal development program you'll ever do. And, and even though you're still in the therapy required stage that happens just after you've written a book, which we all have, don't you worry. I'm sure it won't be that long before you're going, what's that next one gonna be there? Yeah, it does become. I mean, I'm working on my next book now. It's like it just becomes a part of the world. And the greatest thing for any author, as you're experiencing, is to have someone do what you just did. And that's to say, I read your book, I went through it all, I've written it in pen, I've taken this on board. What you've done has been unbelievably helpful for me, and I've had that experience many times over the last 20 years, and from people. I had this couple ring me saying, hey, we're in Bali, you don't know, they emailed me saying, you don't know who we are, but we bought every one of your books, we followed every bit of your advice, we've never reached out to you, we just do exactly what you say, and we just sold our business for $30 million, and we just wanted to say thank you to you. Now, I would have liked a 10% check, right? But or it's a 12-year-old kid in Singapore who said, I read your book and now I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I feel very blessed to be a writer, and I had never set out to be a writer at any stage in my life. So welcome.
People who want to write, you do some mentoring around that, a coaching program. Give that a quick plug.
Mate, I've helped about 750 people to write their first book. So I've got, one-to-one group coaching. I've done it all around the world, in the UK, Singapore, States. And people want to write non-fiction, like our kind of books, non-fiction, generally tied into their business. I've helped people write books on everything from financial wealth to having better orgasms, literally.
Yeah.
You know, like that's my bookshelf looks very eclectic, but from my 747 authors or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. So I love helping people to write books because writing books completely transformed my life. Transformed my life. So if you're thinking about writing a book, write a book.
What was the title of that last one, the orgasm one? But that was
not that we need it for other people.
Okay,
you know.
okay. So anyway, well, back to this. Look, mate, thanks so much for being on the Bucket List Life podcast. This is andrewgriffiths.com.au. Jump on the website, all the details. I tell you what, even the website, like when you go through to Andrew's website, it's like the benchmark of websites. Like, talk about being the most expensive, and why not make it you? Your website is, like, says it all. I think it's such a cool experience, your website. All the details are on there. The book's on there. Definitely grab yourself one. From a mindset point of view, for wannabe entrepreneurs to the more seasoned entrepreneurs, I think it's really apt. Right now, grab a copy, guys. So, mate, thanks so much once again for jumping on. People can connect with you on the socials. Where do you hang out? You're more of a TikTok guy these days,
I occasionally am allowed on Leo's social media platform. My dog, I'm not. Dog. Yeah, look for the little white Maltese, on that side of it. Probably, but you'll find me. I just Google me. I'm easy to find.
Yeah, there's lots of history there. I'll tell you what. Hey guys, Andrew, thanks a lot, buddy.
Do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Come down the coast. We're allowed to now, aren't we? Yeah, come down Ocean Grove. Mate, go follow Andrew. Get the book. Also, if you're new to the Bucket List Life podcast, I want to just say thanks. Thanks for jumping on. I'm really, really grateful for all your comments, whether it be on YouTube. So go subscribe, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Thanks for your comments there on Facebook and LinkedIn and wherever else we're streaming to right now. But also tune in once again, subscribe to the Bucket List Life podcast over on the socials. And once again, thanks to Andrew. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.
See you, Trav. Thank you, mate.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see